नमस्कार दोस्तों, लाइफ एक्सप्रेस के इस एपिसोड में आज हम एक खास विषय पर चर्चा करेंगे और वो है साइंस बिहाइंड ह्यूमन माइंड, पेन एंड इचिंग। क्या हम अपने शरीर और मन को सही तरह समझ पा रहे हैं? आज के युग में जब स्ट्रेस, एंजाइटी, क्रॉनिक पेन और एलर्जिक समस्याएं लगातार बढ़ रही हैं, तो सवाल उठता है, क्या इसका संबंध सिर्फ शारीरिक बीमारियों से है या इसके पीछे मस्तिष्क या न्यूरॉन्स और हमारी लाइफस्टाइल का भी गहरा संबंध है? इस विषय की गंभीरता को देखते हुए आज हमने लाइफ एक्सप्रेस में एक ऐसे विशेष अतिथि को आमंत्रित किया है जो अंतर्राष्ट्रीय स्तर पर विज्ञान, रिसर्च और मानव शरीर के सबसे जटिल तंत्र यानी न्यूरोसाइंस पर एक लंबे अरसे से काम कर रहे हैं। जी हाँ, मैं बात कर रहा हूँ बिहार बॉर्न अमेरिकन साइंटिस्ट की, जो नॉर्थ कैरोलिना स्टेट यूनिवर्सिटी यूएसए में प्रोफेसर के पद पर कार्यरत हैं। आज हम उनसे न केवल पेन और इचिंग जैसे संवेदनात्मक अनुभवों के विज्ञान को समझेंगे, बल्कि ये भी जानेंगे कि रिसर्च और इनोवेशन के माध्यम से कैसे मानव जीवन को बेहतर बनाया जा सकता है। लेकिन उन सब बातों से पहले मैं आज के विशेष अतिथि, जो भले ही किसी परिचय या पहचान के मोहताज नहीं हैं, उनका एक संक्षिप्त परिचय प्रस्तुत करना चाहूंगा। हमारे आज के विशेष अतिथि हैं प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर संतोष मिश्रा। डॉक्टर संतोष मिश्रा का जन्म 4 मई 1977 को बहेरा, दरभंगा में हुआ। बचपन से ही अपनी विलक्षण प्रतिभा और उत्कृष्ट कार्यों के बदौलत उन्होंने समाज में अपनी एक अलग पहचान बना ली थी। यदि हम उनके शैक्षणिक जीवन पर प्रकाश डालें तो हम पाते हैं कि उन्होंने अपनी प्रारंभिक, माध्यमिक तथा उच्च शिक्षा अव्वल दर्जे से सफलतापूर्वक पूरी की। मोर इम्पोर्टेंटली, he did his BSc Botany Honours from Delhi University, followed by MSc Biotechnology from Agra University, MTech Biotechnology from Anna University, and most importantly, he did his PhD in Neuroscience from Frankfurt University, Germany, with the distinction of magna cum laude. In his illustrious career of more than 3 decades, Dr. Mishra has held several dignified academic positions and published more than 100 research papers in high-impact peer-reviewed journals. And I should not forget to add that Dr. Mishra has been felicitated by several accolades, awards and recognitions across the globe, like Mithila Ratan Award, Sigma Life Science USA Award, University Faculty Scholar Award, and many more. And to know more about Dr. Santosh Mishra and his works, I shall take you straight to him. So please join me in welcoming a dedicated, great scientist in the service of mankind, one and only Dr. Santosh Mishra.
नमस्कार सर।
नमस्कार जी। धन्यवाद मुझे आप अपने इस पॉडकास्ट इंटरव्यू पे बुलाने के लिए, और मैं ऑल्सो सभी लोगों का धन्यवाद करूंगा जो LXP के ऑडियंस हैं, जो हमें सुन रहे हैं। सो थैंक यू वेरी मच फॉर योर टाइम।
Thank you. So first of all, on behalf of my entire Life Express team and on behalf of my intellectual viewers, I extend a very warm welcome and sincere gratitude to you for your gracious presence in Life Express.
Thank you so much.
So आपके प्रोफाइल को देखने पर पता चलता है कि आप एक ग्रामीण पृष्ठभूमि से आते हैं, लेकिन अपनी लगन व कड़ी मेहनत से सफलता की पराकाष्ठा पर चले जाते हैं। So starting our today's interaction, not only I, but all our viewers would like to know from you, what are the guiding principles or driving force of your life? साथ ही जैसा कि मैंने आपके प्रोफाइल में देख पाया कि आपकी शैक्षणिक और शोध यात्रा भारत से लेकर जर्मनी और संयुक्त राज्य अमेरिका तक फैली हुई है। तो यहाँ थोड़ा आप अपने अनुभव के आधार पर हमें बताएं कि किस तरह के अपॉर्चुनिटीज एंड चैलेंजेस उन भारतीय वैज्ञानिकों के सामने आते हैं
जो खासकर भारत के बाहर अपना कार्य क्षेत्र चुनते हैं? जी, ओवर टू यू।
Well, it's I would start with my journey, because your question has multiple parts. So I would start with my just saying that my journey, it's a global journey, and it has been a very fascinating journey. And each stop in my journey, so I call it a stop because India is my first stop where I'm born and brought up, correct? And then I moved to Germany. That's my second stop, and then my third stop is US, correct? Where I kind of professionally grew up. And each stop in my journey has taught me something different. Let's say, for example, as you mentioned, my roots are from Bihar, okay, but I grew up in Delhi. So these are two different, like, just cultural difference that you can see within the India itself, correct? And Delhi, I grew up because my father moved to Delhi for work purpose, and he was working for Delhi police. So that's how I call myself Delhiite, because that's where I did all my basic education to like higher education, like up to undergraduate degree. And in India, my takeaway was when I was growing up was this incredible resilience that we call it, correct? Like, and also source optimization that we had in India, like the brain mindset, what we often call it as a jugaad, correct? Like that in Hindi. So as an Indian, I would say I essentially trained to solve complex problem with high scientific rigor, and under very limited conditions, correct? When I was growing up, so it might have changed now. I mean, limited condition, not only the household conditions, but also I was talking about, like, the education system and all that. Like, so we, like, I still remember, like, our we used to have a computer, and only few people can go and use the computer at that time. So that's why I said, like, the limited condition things might have changed now, since this was, I'm talking about 25 years back. Then I moved to Germany, and where I learned the tradition of precision, correct? Because they are very, like, very focused, precise things they do. But asking the big questions, that's the training that I got it during my PhD time. And that's also, I would say, that's the place where I actually met my beautiful, lovely wife. And then we decided that we'll move to United States. And in United States, that's my basically in this three station or three, the stops that I mentioned in the beginning. Um, uh, that is I would call it a final stop at this point. And in this stop, what I learned is a risk-taking step, correct? Risk-taking culture, that in the US we call it. And also the speed of innovation, because, like, they really focus on that a lot. And this is where me and my wife and me, we were blessed with our two lovely sons. So this place has a beautiful memory that we have. Now, the question that you have about opportunities and challenges, if I understood it right, faced by the talent at the global stage and all. So I believe, the challenges are universal, correct? It's wherever you live, you find the challenges. So it's not like, just whether I was in the US or in Germany or in United States. So it's almost everywhere. Um,
Mhm.
in fact, I see, my experience through these different stops that navigate me to what I call it adaptability, correct? Because that we are more adaptable, because you become more adaptable to various things, your environment, around your environment. So that is the single greatest opportunity I would call for anyone, correct? Like, and then when I was growing up, my father used to share this anecdote that it mostly says, like, because that's the challenge, correct? Because he always told me, and that kind of, like, stuck in my brain, that don't be like a rigid tree, because those rigid tree, whenever the hurricane comes or the storm comes, correct, they will fall. So be like a flexible plant, because they can survive easily. So that flexibility, or what I call it, like, that you eventually have as a, like, adaptability in your brain. So that really worked very well for me.
Sorry to
And
interrupt
this
you here.
flexibility,
So may I just request you, like you said that your father, said something, as anecdote. So can you just, tell us, the exact wording in his language? I'll really appreciate that.
श्योर। तो
Yeah.
तो पापा मेरे कहा करते थे कि बेटा जो है, तने पेड़ की तरह मत रहा करो, क्योंकि तना पेड़ वो होता है, तना इन द सेंस लाइक जो स्ट्रॉन्ग, लाइक जो रिजिड जो होते हैं, बड़े पेड़ जो होते हैं, क्योंकि अगर आप देखो रियल लाइफ में हरिकेन जब आता है या जब आंधी आती है, तूफान आते हैं, तो वही पेड़ पहले गिरते हैं, करेक्ट। लेकिन जो छोटे पेड़ हैं वो सर्वाइव कर जाते हैं, क्यों? क्योंकि दे आर फ्लेक्सिबल, करेक्ट। सो वो हवा जिस आती है उस डायरेक्शन में मुड़ जाते हैं। तो ये उनका कहना था। So that is what, like, the flexibility that allows me to meet the demands of the global stage, I would say, at this point. And today's institutions are not just looking for, I would also say this, they are not also always looking for the people who know what or what, like, how. So because this, everyone can do it. Like, everyone can ask, what is this, correct? How you can do this. But that's actually not we call it, like, in scientific term, we call it technical expertise, correct? So which is common. You can find people. The important question is why. Why? So asking that why question, like, and that's very important. And that in my early life in India, the focus was often that was on mastery or execution, correct? While things might have changed again, as I said, now, but what my journey abroad taught me that the biggest opportunity lies in moving beyond the technical and into the invention. So that was probably, I answered the first part of your question. And the second part of the question is the driving forces or principle that guided me through my life, correct? So I would say I tend to live by these three guiding principles. And I'll go one by one. And that guiding principles also kept me grounded. The first one, I mentioned this just right before this intellectual humility, correct? So in general, but as I said before, the moment we think that we are the smartest person in the room, we stop growing. The second one, as I mentioned again, as before, is the resilience and, like, that through your adaptability. So my move across these three countries helped me to that environment that will always change, because something will change is around you. What will not change is your own core values that I learned from my parents, when I was growing up, from my professors, from my mentors, from my friends, family, colleagues, you name it, like, whosoever you interacted. And that core values and the teaching that we learn, that should not change. In lab, what I tell my students all the time, that a failed experiment or a rejected grant, because we write a grant, right, is just another opportunity for you. It's not a dead end. So, like, most of the time, student comes and they say, hey, well, my experiment failed. And I say, don't worry, that is your next step, correct? Because now you can go and actually think about the next experiment that you want to do. And then the last thing, and which I mentioned before, the mentorship, correct? Mentorship is something that you learn from any person, whether that's my son, that's my wife, that's my brother, my parents, my teacher. And that is very important. And that is something that not just learn and just to stick to yourself, but that move it forward, correct? Because what you learn, the good values, the good things, and that you have to actually pass it on. This is what I learned from my younger brother, who used to actually, like, very early on, he told me, correct, like, just pass it on. And my father used to say also, जैसे वो हमेशा कहते थे, विद्या एक ऐसी चीज है जो बांटने से बढ़ती है, correct? तो वो अगर आप नहीं बांटोगे तो वो आप तक ही रह जाएगी. तो ये जो मेंटरशिप जो है, वो एक अलग रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी जो कि बहुत जरूरी है, जिसको पास करना है. Third part of your question, sorry, I'm probably taking it too long, but you can just stop me wherever you feel like. But the third part of your question is, like, like what India is looking. Am I right? That in the global career,
right?
Is that what your question is? Yeah. So I think what I actually found in myself is first thing is to have a dream. That's very important.
Mhm.
So have a dream. And the second thing, have a big dream, because you can dream anything you want, correct? And so
Mhm.
biggest dream, if you think about the biggest, and that is the most important, that like again, and I'll quote one of the thing what my father used to say is, अर्जुन की कहानी सुनी होगी, वो फिश आई, वन आई, करेक्ट,
Mhm.
एक
Mhm.
फोकस होना चाहिए। तो वो बचपन में सुनते थे हम कि एक फोकस होना चाहिए, क्योंकि अगर बहुत फोकस रखोगे, बहुत डिफरेंट फोकस रखोगे, तो आप डिस्ट्रैक्टेड रहोगे। तो अपना एक गोल
Mhm.
बनाओ और उसको अचीव करो। So by saying that, like, if there is one thing that I have learned from India
Mhm.
to America, that is my big dream, that I actually set it up very beginning, and I remember
Mhm.
बहुत 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 अच्छे से मुझे याद है, मैं अपने नाना जी के यहाँ ननिहाल में था, और वहां पर मैं सुनता था कि जब हमारे देश में रात है तो कोई एक देश है जहां पर सुबह होती होगी।
बिल्कुल।
और वो चीज उस टाइम, वो चीज कभी तब मैंने कभी सोचा भी नहीं था कि शायद मैं ये
Mhm.
देख भी पाऊंगा। और
Mhm.
बट वो बिग ड्रीम शायद मेरे दिमाग में उसी टाइम आई कि आई हैव टू हैव अ गोल, करेक्ट, एंड आई सेट माय गोल, एंड व्हाट आई डिड इज द दैट आई लेट दैट डेली प्रोसेस, बिकॉज यू सेट योर गोल, बट उसका मतलब नहीं कि हम सिर्फ अपना गोल सेट करें, बट आप डेली उस पर काम करो और उसको इंजॉय करो, बिकॉज आप उसको लोड समझ के मत चलो, लाइक कि कि
Mhm.
अरे यार, ये गोल तो बना लिया, लेकिन ये बहुत बड़ा गोल है, क्या मैं कर पाऊंगा? तो वो जर्नी, कहता है कि लाइफ इज अ जर्नी, so take that
Mhm.
as a journey. So set your goal, take that as a journey, because when you
Mhm.
master the process, correct, when you master the process, the results are not just a possibility, they become the
Mhm.
reality. And that's
Reality.
where I will stop. I hope I answered your
Excellent.
question.
Excellent. Yes. So thoughtful of you. And I really appreciate, the transparency with which you narrated your life journey, especially you attributed your success to your father's, uh, instructions or, suggestions who inspired you to be, adaptable to the new situation. Great indeed, And you also underlined, three guiding principles like intellectual humility, adaptability and mentorship. खासकर आपने अपने भाई का भी उल्लेख किया और वही बात मेरे पिताजी भी मुझे कहा करते थे कि इस दुनिया में जितने भी धन है उसको खर्चा करने से कम होता है, लेकिन सिर्फ विद्या धन एक ऐसा धन है जिसको जितना खर्चा करो करो उतना बढ़ता है। वेरी ट्रू। सो कमिंग टू योर कोर स्पेशलाइजेशन, आप पेन और इच की न्यूरो बायोलॉजी जैसे अत्यंत जटिल विषय पर कार्य कर रहे हैं। यहां हम सरल भाषा में आपसे समझना चाहेंगे कि दर्द और खुजली का अनुभव हमारे मस्तिष्क में कैसे उत्पन्न होता है और यह केवल शारीरिक ही नहीं बल्कि मानसिक अनुभव भी क्यों बन जाता है। ओवर टू यू सर। या
Sure. That's an excellent question. And I would say that I can take all day long to explain this, but I know that we don't have time. So I'll basically go very briefly to talk about that. And I would probably start with a simple term, correct? Because what what we considered as this pain and itch, correct? And um, initially, the pain and itch was considered as a protective alarms, correct? The protective alarms means that, like, when we have a bug bite, जब अगर मच्छर है, अगर मच्छर that is sitting on our arm, and it is going to actually act as an alarm to remove that, correct? To remove that, the mosquito from the body surface. And same thing for the pain. And give another analogy for that. Let's imagine your body is a house, correct? Our body is a house. We are equipped with high-tech security system that's in our house, correct? And pain is like that smoke detector. So nowadays we have smoke detector at the house, and whenever there is a fire, what will happen? The smoke detector will turn off, correct? And that will tell us the house people in the house, hey, there's a fire. Let's leave the house, correct? So it's an alarm. That's what I said in the beginning. Same thing for age, correct? That is the motion. So itch is a part of motion sensory, correct? Because we go and remove that itch, like the mosquito that I mentioned. So they are there to protect us. That was initial thought, correct? That long time back when we think about these two. But problem problem is the chronic. the chronic pain, the chronic itch, that the people that suffer from this, and that which means that, like, remember the analogy, the alarm analogy. So this gets stuck. They continuously on and on. And what will happen if something, even at house, if that alarm is on, at some point you'll say, hey, somebody go and turn off that alarm, correct? So that chronic pain and itch is like that. Now, your question about, like, how, like, we feel this and how that goes to the brain, correct? Because, and that's a wonderful question, because itch, normally we think itch and pain is more localized, correct? Because let's say osteoarthritis, joint pain, and in joint pain we feel that the pain is happening in the joint, but actually that's not the case. And that is where what we call the basic discovery, and I'll talk about that also later on to explain this. So I started my journey in as a PhD in a totally different topic, which is like neurogenesis, formation of new neuron. And then I changed this research also because of the personal reasons, and that my mom has osteoarthritis pain, correct? So she suffers from pain for last 10 years. Like, every day when I talk to her, she says, okay, well, मुझे आज घुटने में pain हो रहा है, या मैं ज़्यादा mobility कम हो जा रही है, correct? So that was the time that I thought, how do we feel pain, correct? What is pain feels like? And that is to your question, correct? From periphery to the central in the brain. And pain, as I said, I'll take whole day to talk about. There is an effective component, there is an affective component, effective and affective. And these are two different things. So effective is that starts in the joint, and affective is that we're in the brain. And you also heard about, like, sometimes when we are sleeping, we feel more pain or we feel more itching, correct? So in the night, we feel that more, correct? And that's an example of affective pain, because our brain suppresses some part, get toned down, and then these firing, you feel more the going to the brain, because that's what is processing the pain, like, the signal. So in basically this whole circuit is where I got interested, as I mentioned, also from the personal experience, like, not personal experience, from my mom's experience, that I thought that I would like to understand the basic puzzle. How do we feel? How exactly? And I'm doing most of the research right now on the effective, which is basically कैसे ये signal जो है, ये अगर मच्छर काटता है तो वो सिग्नल कैसे जो है वो हमारे स्किन से जो है ब्रेन में जाता है। इसी तरह से कैसे जो जॉइंट पेन है वो कैसे हम जो घुटनों से जो है वो हमें फील होता है और कैसे हम उसको जो है ब्रेक करते हैं। तो ये जो और दूसरा फिर आपने ये भी देखा होगा कि जब हम मेरा पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंस जो मैंने कहा, जैसे हम जाते हैं डेंटिस्ट के पास, और डेंटिस्ट जो है अगर उसको दांत में कुछ करना है तो वो एक लोकल एनेस्थेटिक देता है। लोकल एनेस्थेटिक से क्या होता है, हमारी पूरा जो सर है वो नम हो जाता है। And then it takes us almost 30 to 40 minutes, correct? To get out of this. So अभी जितने भी पेन ट्रीटमेंट्स हैं वो जो हैं वो बेसिकली, और या एच ट्रीटमेंट्स हैं, वो लाइक स्लेज हैमर की तरह है। लाइक आपको एक या तो बहुत पेन हो रहा है तो आपको स्टेरॉइड दे दिया, उसने उसको खत्म कर दिया, बट उसके बहुत ही सारे साइड इफेक्ट हो जाते हैं। तो मेरी जो अप्रोच थी वो ये थी कि कैसे हम इसको जो है नेल डाउन करें, क्योंकि हमारा जो सिस्टम है इसमें इतने न्यूरॉन हैं, जैसे ब्रेन हमारा पूरा न्यूरॉन से भरा हुआ है, इसी तरह से पेरिफेरल नर्वस सिस्टम होता है जो कि जिसको हम बोलते हैं कि जो फर्स्ट गेट कीपर है जो सेंसरी सिस्टम का। सो हमारा सेंसरी सिस्टम डिवाइड है पेरिफेरल और सेंट्रल सिस्टम में। सो पेरिफेरल जो है वो मैसेज को लेके जाता है और वो फिर जो है सेंट्रल नर्वस सिस्टम जो है थ्रू स्पाइनल कॉर्ड जो है ब्रेन को देता है। तो ये जैसे इसकी एग्जांपल दूंगा, जैसे पाइप होता है ना कि आपका गार्डन जो है घर के बाहर गार्डन है और आपको एक पर्टिकुलर फ्लावर को पानी देना है, तो आप क्या करते हो, उसको होस्ट से कनेक्ट करते हो और फिर वहां तक पहुंच के उसको पानी देते हो। सो सेम थिंग हमारा ये नर्वस सिस्टम है बॉडी में। तो इसी तरह से पेन जो है और इच जो है काम करता है। तो मैं उसमें आई वॉज इंटरेस्टेड मोर इन दैट द बेसिक पजल्स, and because I wanted to understand first how it works, because once we know how it works, then we can actually target that, correct? So that is what I have been doing for last 10 years to understand the mechanism behind pain and itch.
Awesome. And I feel your findings or discovery ये मतलब भविष्य में रोगियों के बेहतर उपचार और बेहतर जीवन का मार्ग प्रशस्त करेगी इस तरह के फाइंडिंग्स एक्सीलेंट well moving further my next question is from career perspective as you know many young people in India aspire to pursue careers in advanced fields like neuroscience and research, but often feel fear and confusion about the path ahead. Hmm. So, based on your personal journey, what message would you like to share with young aspirants, especially those who want to build a global identity in science and research?
Yeah,
Over to you, sir. Yeah.
sure. I think another wonderful question, and I would start by saying, as you mentioned something about that the young aspirants, they have this fear, correct, or confusion kind of thing, and my personal suggestion is by saying this: don't be afraid, because that's the very key thing. Because I think, because if we are afraid, we won't do things, correct? So that stop us from doing things. And मैं एक ये आइकॉनिक लाइन लूंगा हिंदी बॉलीवुड मूवी से, शोले सभी ने देखी है अभी, हमारे 70s 80s और 60s से लेके अभी तक, और मूवी अभी भी चलती है, करेक्ट? और उसमें एक लाइन है, जो डर गया वो मर गया, समझो वो मर गया, करेक्ट?
Correct.
सो आई वुड से कि तो ये जो चीज है, चाहे आप रिसर्च में हो, चाहे आप कोई भी काम कर रहे हो लाइफ में, किसी भी फील्ड में हो आप, and don't be afraid, because often tend to, and I have seen, this is again, I'm telling from my personal experience growing up in India. We were, at many times we were said, hey, don't say this, people won't like it, correct? So I think that line is very important, because you have to be empathetic, correct? But at the same time, you have to ask your questions, correct? How you are asking your question, and that's the very important thing. And then the second thing, as I said, that is linked to your I think first question or second question, that having a clear goals, correct? And that is best way to stay grounded, because once you have the goal, then you are grounded, because you know what you want to do it, correct? And also that prevents you from confusion. Because when you have a clear, because the confusion starts if you have many goals or if you have no goals, correct? Because that's the problem. So either take that as a dream or taking that as a goal, but have that goal. And goal can be multiple, correct? Because it's always start from very big question, like an aerial view, correct? So you start from aerial view, which is your big dream, which I said, but then each part or each goals, the big goal has a small sub goals, correct? And that's the ladder, correct? That's the ladder for your big goal that we talked about. And I think that is very important for that. And I from my personal experience, I can probably provide 3 different mantras for life, that I learned. And the first one is also that is related to the first thing, what I call it, patience, correct? That you have to be either, as I said, either doing research, and in research it is very important to be patient, correct? Because biological research mostly takes very long time, correct? It's not just like building. I'm not trying to offend any technology people or engineers, but what I'm giving an example is thinking about consumer app, phone. Every year we see, hey, there is a new iPhone or new phone is coming up, correct? And that's where it's very, very, very easy. Those fields growing very fast, correct? But in biological system, that is not the case. Our human nervous system is very complex, and or human body is very complex, correct? And you take any part of the body, correct? And it's so complex, and that first you have to understand it. Second, once you understand it, you have to validate those things, correct? That if that is working or not. And then the third thing, then you go into that, like, that phase of, like, that where you say, okay, now I have target that I can go and start working on that target. So that's the first mantra, I would say. The second, I would say, persistent, correct? Because that's very important. So I call it double P. In my life, I call it three mantras: P, P, and C. So first P, I told you, patience. Second P is persistence, which in research or even in life, correct? We often fail, often see more failures than success, correct? Like just anybody's life, just take it, whether a baby growing up versus a teenager versus, like, adult, or so we often have more failure than success in our life. However, in research, I would say it is more critical in biological discovery is takes time. That takes time. And so that's why if you are, and failure, that is very common. So if you actually don't learn and don't be persistent on those failure to work on the success, then that will be you will win. And I'll give an example of this in like, for the persistent example is that there is a person, she I think believe received Nobel Prize recently, 2023, and her name is Katerina Kariko. She was the one who actually got Nobel Prize for the mRNA discovery that happened recently, correct? And if you look at her story, and that's your question about the young aspirants. That's why I want to share that with you. That these 40 years in her life, she was constantly told no. 40 years. So no, whether that was a grant application because she was a scientist, correct? So she wanted to have grants to run the lab. Her grants were rejected. She was demoted, and her research into mRNA was completely dismissed because before COVID, nobody was talking about mRNA discovery, mRNA vaccines and all, correct? So everything was a dead end for her, correct? I mean, if you think about, like, but she remained persistent. And that is where that she didn't view that rejections or those rejections as a reason to stop, So instead of taking that to stop, she saw them as an opportunity. And she basically, what she did is she persisted on her journey. And most often, I would say, बहुत टाइम ऐसा होता है कि वो कहते हैं ना थ्रेशोल्ड जो होता है, हम अपने परसिस्टेंट को भी टेस्ट करते हैं हमेशा, राइट? लाइक और कितनी बार क्या होता है कि सिर्फ वो एक जो थ्रेशोल्ड है उसके उस पार या इस पार, कितनी बार हम उस थ्रेशोल्ड तो पहुंच के वी गिव अप, एंड दैट्स वेयर वी बेसिकली see the failures as a failure. But आप जब उस लाइन को क्रॉस करते हो, चाहे वो 40 साल हो, वो जो टाइम है, and you have the example, like, she received Nobel Prize, correct? And this is one of the topmost prize in the scientific discovery that one can get it. So that is, and then the last part, and I'll keep it brief, that is the third mantra that I said, PPC, correct? C stands for collaboration, correct? So collaboration, because right now, whatever we do in science, or I mean, science, especially in science, because we cannot do things in silo, correct? And you probably heard about these terms called interdisciplinary, correct? Because I'm a pain and itch expert, but there are certainly there are many more things that I cannot do it, correct? If I have to know how these neuron works, correct? So those neurons have electrical properties too. And if I want to learn about those electrical property, because I was trained as a biologist, I can't do it. So if I am not open to collaborate, I won't be able to learn that aspect of the biology, right? So I think the last part is the collaboration that makes you feel to do things faster and, like, in a teamwork. And also during this collaboration, you learn a lot, as I mentioned in the beginning, like, the interaction, correct? That environment that helps you to learn about these adaptability, resilience, and those sort of things. So I'll stop here. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, it was highly meaningful. And आपको जितना सुनो उतना ही और सुनने का मन करता है. And indeed, listening to is such a great intellectual pleasure, and but समय की थोड़ी मर्यादा है. And considering the time constraint, we shall move on to the last question of this session. And the question is, as you know, India aspires to become a knowledge superpower, using its ancient knowledge and wisdom, especially in science and innovation. So please tell us here, what key steps do you think India should prioritize to achieve international leadership, especially in neuroscience and biomedical research? Over to you, sir. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great question and also a difficult question. So I would probably take a step back to say that where we were 25 years, I started in the beginning, correct? The 25 years when I was in India, and now in those 24 years. So we look at that, like, especially in India, I still in touch with India, look at science and other things, read about it. And what I would like to say here is if we understand where we need to go to do things versus how far we have come from there in that 25 years, if I look at it. So I would say we've done a lot, like, even like, in India, in these 25 years, because 25 years back when I was growing up, I hardly knew a single neuroscience institute at that time. Maybe that's my ignorance, because maybe I was not at that time to wanted to be a neuroscience, so I haven't looked at it. But the other thing I like, I remember that we have, like, infection, because even at that time I probably didn't know about, like, what is infection looks like. Yeah, we suffer from infection, or we get sick and all that sort of thing. But we knew there are hospitals, there are research going on, infection, immunology, all that sort of thing, correct? So, like, what I'm trying to say here, कि 25 साल पहले जो न्यूरोसाइंस इंस्टीट्यूट जो नहीं थे, अब हमारे पास काफी इंस्टीट्यूट हैं, 4 से 5 institute जो at least I know that they are there in India, correct? So in those 25 years, we really did a lot, correct? But today we have to make this progress because your question is about, like, how we can to be the, like, top in neuroscience at global stage. And I think when I think about this, I feel like that to become a global leader, we have to move from silo to more like a national network, correct? Because still, if you think about the institutes that we have, 5 is not many, correct? Because the way the neuroscience, if you think about neuroscience, it is connected to our whole body, correct? Everything, like, like either if we feel, the gut pain, when we have a gut pain, kidney pain, lung pain, they are all connected to the nervous system. So what I call always, the neuron or the nervous system is like a computer that's controlling your whole body. So looking at that, we have only 4 institute is really not, and I can give an example here in United States, correct? Because if you look at the United States, every state, we know you have more than 1 institute for neuroscience, correct? There. So now what I'm coming to here is that we definitely need infrastructure, correct? So we need an infrastructure, so which comes from the funding, correct? So government has to put more money to build up more neuroscience institute. If they cannot make many more neuroscience institute, but at least if they have every department, if there is a neuroscience department, that would definitely help, correct? And then the second thing I would say, shifting, like funding shifting, correct? Because I think in India we have more disease kind of thing. Like, I'm not no demeaning. I have full respect, but we have also here these diseases here. But what they do here is that they. So one is the drug, correct? You need the pills to eat to get rid of the diseases, correct? But what you need to get this pill is to understand the biology, as I said before, the basic biology behind it. And
Mm.
what we need to do is we need to transfer, or we need to fund shifting toward the basic discovery. So whether,
Mm.
like, as you mentioned about neuroscience, if that is the
Right.
case, I would say definitely we need to shift some funding for basic discovery. So we need to have a basic discovery like India is doing in other fields, immunology, infection, immunity, malaria, correct? So we have done, even I was I was trained as during my master at Agra University, and I was going to this place called JALMA, which is Japanese Anti-Leprosy Mission for Asia, and we used to train there for like the molecular biology and those sort of thing, and we're doing great. We're doing all this great, but I still feel, maybe again, as I said, maybe because I'm not in the environment there, so I may have not exactly knowledge how much basic fundings are there. But I'm talking about 25 years back when I was doing neuroscience in the labs. We had some of those, like the funding issues and all. So that needs to be taken care. So I will end up by saying two things: the infrastructure, we need to raise those infrastructure, and second, the basic discovery in neuroscience, and that will take us to the global, place.
Excellent. So you have beautifully put forth, rigors of academia, life, and research, and also different challenges and opportunities associated to them. And I can say with a great conviction that your each and every message will go a long way in carrying out meaningful research and meaningful life as well. And to sum up, it's time to conclude our interaction. And to conclude our interaction, may I now finally request you to kindly give a message of peace and progress for society and mankind at large, so that we could create a better human, a better society, a better nation, a better planet for a better tomorrow. Over to you. Yes, sir.
Thank you, and it has been really a pleasure being here, and thank you for these excellent questions. I would say one thing, because like what you mentioned about better peace, better world as India. I mean, and that comes for, again, the young generation, I call it, the students, correct? That because they are taking the torch to the next level now, correct? And if any of these students listening to our this podcast, I would say feels as this. I mean, to me, as that dirt. I mentioned about that Gabbar Singh analogy, correct? Take that dirt out,
Mm.
and bring the curiosity, correct? And if you bring the curiosity, you will basically go to the places, go and do the things that will help the mankind, correct? Whether you are in research, biological research, computer research, anything that you would want to do in your life, just have that big dream, and work on it. Be compassionate, be empathetic, because I think that's very important, because now we are living in a totally different time, where everything is on phone, and we are kind of even calling our friends. We used to go, we used to meet, we used to give them a hug, correct? And again, this wonderful movie from you know Amir Khan or someone back in India, the hug wala, oh yeah, Sanjay Dutt movies, correct? Giving
Mhm.
that big hug, and I
Right.
think that's
Munna
very
Bhai
important.
MBBS, I think you're talking of.
Yes,
Okay.
that's absolutely right. Thank you for reminding me of that movie. Yeah. So
Right.
that is very important. So I think we have to we have to take time for ourselves too, correct? Because I think that's very important. That's very important for mental peace, that mental health, that which is we are facing now, correct? We all are facing now, and I feel more for the next generation. So what I would say, if you are listening this episode, then and you actually do one good thing, that take that fear out, set your goal, have a big dream. I would think that we have done our job today after this meeting, that will help them to help the next generation.
Great. So, sir, we are immensely grateful to you for your scholarly presence with us today. और शिक्षा और अनुसंधान जगत में आपके उत्कृष्ट और सराहनीय कार्यों के लिए लाइफ एक्सप्रेस की जोड़ी ने आपके लिए एक अवार्ड की घोषणा की है और वो अवार्ड है लाइफ एक्सप्रेस आइकन ऑफ इंडिया अवार्ड। और आपकी इस उपलब्धि पर मैं आपको अपने इंटेलेक्चुअल व्यूअर्स की ओर से ढेरों बधाई देता हूं। हार्टिएस्ट कांग्रेचुलेशंस। God willing, we shall meet again in some other academic forum. Thank you for connecting with us today. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
LXP Icon of India Award is proudly presented to Dr. Santosh Mishra for his exemplary contributions to the field of neuroscience on 14th March 2026।
आज के सत्र की समाप्ति मैं फिर एक आह्वान के साथ करूंगा, खासकर डॉक्टर संतोष मिश्रा की बातचीत से निकले कुछ मुख्य अंश को लेकर। सबसे पहले उन्होंने अपनी यात्रा को वैश्विक बताया, जिसमें भारत उनका पहला पड़ाव था, जर्मनी दूसरा और अमेरिका तीसरा। भारत में उन्होंने लचीलापन और सीमित संसाधनों में समस्या समाधान सीखा। जर्मनी में उन्होंने सटीकता और बड़े प्रश्न पूछना सीखा। अमेरिका में उन्होंने रिस्क टेकिंग और पेस ऑफ इनोवेशन को समझा। डॉक्टर मिश्रा सेड दैट चैलेंजेस आर यूनिवर्सल बट वन शुड मूव ऑन विद अ माइंडसेट ऑफ अडेप्टेबिलिटी। अपनी सफलता का श्रेय उन्होंने अपने पिता और भाई को देते हुए बताया कि उनके पिता ने उन्हें एक कठोर पेड़ के बजाय एक लचीले पौधे की तरह बनने की सलाह दी, जो तूफान में भी जीवित रह सकता है। उन्होंने अपने जीवन के 3 मार्गदर्शक सिद्धांतों में इंटेलेक्चुअल विनम्रता, व्यवहार में लचीलापन या अनुकूलनशीलता और मेंटरशिप का उल्लेख किया। उन्होंने अपने शोध की खोज के तहत बताया कि दर्द और खुजली का अनुभव केवल शारीरिक नहीं बल्कि मानसिक भी होता है, क्योंकि मस्तिष्क इन संकेतों को संसाधित करता है। और साथ में उन्होंने यह भी बताया कि कैसे दर्द और खुजली के अनुभव या संकेत त्वचा से मस्तिष्क तक जाते हैं और उन्हें कैसे रोका जा सकता है। युवा वैज्ञानिकों के लिए उन्होंने डरने के बजाय स्पष्ट लक्ष्य रखने, धैर्यवान रहने, दृढ़ रहने और सहयोग करने की सलाह दी। उन्होंने नोबेल पुरस्कार विजेता कैटालिन कारिको का उदाहरण दिया, जिन्हें 40 साल तक लगातार अस्वीकृति का सामना करने के बाद सफलता मिली। भारत में न्यूरोसाइंस और बायोमेडिकल रिसर्च में वैश्विक नेतृत्व हासिल करने के लिए उन्होंने अधिक न्यूरोसाइंस संस्थानों के निर्माण और बुनियादी शोध के लिए अधिक धन आवंटित करने की आवश्यकता पर भी जोर दिया। अंत में उन्होंने समाज और मानवता के लिए शांति और प्रगति का संदेश देते हुए कहा कि युवाओं को डर को त्याग कर जिज्ञासा अपनानी चाहिए, बड़े सपने देखने चाहिए, उन पर काम करना चाहिए और दयालु व सहानुभूतिपूर्ण होना चाहिए। With those deliberations of Dr. संतोष मिश्रा, we close this episode here और मिलते हैं अगले एपिसोड में समाज के एक और रोल मॉडल के साथ। Till then, enjoy your time meaningfully और हाँ, अपना और अपनों का भी ख्याल रखें। जय हिंद।